Good morning. Today is Thursday, April 10th, 2025, and welcome to the regular meeting of the California Fair Political Practices Commission. Ms. Vo, will you please take roll?
Commissioner Brandt?
Here.
Commissioner Ortiz?
Here.
Commissioner Wilson?
Here.
Chair Silver?
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Let's move on to item number 1, and that's going to be public comment for items not on today's agenda. Do we have any public comment for items not on today's agenda? Looks like we do have public comment in the room. Good morning, sir.
Can you hear me okay, Chairman?
I can.
Thank you. Good morning, folks. I want to reintroduce myself. Hopefully, please tell me when my 3 minutes is up. I've been here before, briefly explaining my situation. I'm a former city councilman, George Barrich, in the city of Cotati, and I'm hoping this issue is under your purview. But I'll explain that I've lived in my town for over 30 years. I've been active in politics, and I've run for city council, I think, 9 times over the years. Okay, I've won once. Because I was a conservative and a Republican, I was recalled within a year of being on the council by keeping my campaign promises and asking the right questions, which they thought were the wrong questions, but history being what it is, what I'm here to talk about is the fact that the political mafia in my town has pretty much predetermined who is going to run for city council and who will not. And I'm the only person that keeps that sparks an election happening at all. Because if I don't run, there is no election. This happens in some small towns, but that's really not under your purview of what I'm talking about. What's happened in the last few years, because I keep running for city council, despite the fact that I was recalled by a small majority in town, is that the city council has hired out a independent attorney to act as code enforcement team for our town. And he does this for other towns too. But they have cleverly used him and weaponized him to go after their political rivals. Now, the night that he was hired in 2018, I smelt a rat, and I got up and I spoke when he was introduced to the council as taking on this new position, because our city staff was a little overwhelmed for these code violations, right? And I warned the council, knowing who they were. I said, do not use this fine gentleman to go after your political rivals. Do not weaponize this department. I'm going to warn you now. But they could not resist. And over the last couple of years, they decided to come after me for frivolous code violations on my house. They found a neighbor, a Democrat, to file a couple complaints about my RV being parked too close to the setback, my small shipping container in the backyard in a rural area of town, my driveway being too wide when all my neighbors' driveways were as wide as mine, on and on, with fines totaling to date over $1 million. I've been in administrative hearings at City Hall where they set up a little courtroom. I've spent a fortune on attorney's fees. My attorney's been very good. They've got a rented judge in the pocket of the code enforcement team, which we found out. And they're trying to wear me down with legal fees and so forth. And we're about ready, hopefully, to get to a determination. I've sued the city of Cotati twice in federal court and won big with, legal fees and so forth, with front page articles in our local newspaper. They were furious about this. Reading the list of violations.
Sorry to interrupt you. Per your request, I'm just letting you know that you hit your 3 minutes.
Okay, just in 10 seconds.
Of course,
I'm just here hoping, looking at your website, whether you are the agency that would cover such violations and so forth. And I'll probably need some assistance from your enforcement team to help me in that direction. And I'll be back to answer more questions at another date.
Excellent. I'm sure they'd be happy to assist you. So I would just reach out to the enforcement division. They can answer any questions you may have. And another thing, I feel like our enforcement division website actually does an excellent job of laying out, what falls within our jurisdiction and what doesn't. So I'd check that out as well.
I did, and I wasn't sure, so thank you. Thank you, sir.
Well, that's what we're here for. Thank you. And, any other comments from commissioners? No? Any other public comment? Okay, go ahead. Good morning.
Hi, this is Lori Alderman. I'm a neighbor of George Barrick, and I really wanted to address that we haven't had a fair election in 10 years. There's always been staff or council members, and we've got the whole council that is in collusion on this. And it actually, the fines against George Barrick right now are at $2 million. They recognize code enforcement, and they won't give us things like PRA requests with for Form 700s on people, when we know on other towns where for over a year an activist has been trying to get Form 700s on certain. They haven't filed so many things. Is there any way that when it's just not the count, it's just not one person, but it's a whole council that is in collusion, for there to be a pathway for us to take on this? We can take one person at a time, but we can't take on a whole council. It just doesn't make sense of how with your rules and everything. But the situation is just getting worse and worse. They've interfered in 2020 with a bond measure. The staff, city manager used public funds. We've never had a fair election, and now they're weaponizing against the only person that tries. Anyways, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your public comment. And if you or an associate are having trouble getting a hold of a Form 700, I'd recommend reaching out to our Form 700 unit, and perhaps they can assist you in securing that. Any other public comment? Well, we have a comment from Commissioner Wilson.
Yes, I just want to say that when local citizens come forward, it's appreciated regardless of their political affiliation, their politics, but the right to access Form 700s, as the chair pointed out, is something that should be accessible by any member of the public. So, I just want to reiterate what the chair said in terms of working with the FPPC team to identify that information.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilson. Any other public comment? Okay, let's move on to item number 2, and that's going to be approval of our March 2025 commission meeting minutes. Do we have any changes proposed by commissioners on the minutes? Okay.
Motion to accept the minutes from the last meeting.
Second?
Okay, Ms. Vo?
Commissioner Brandt?
I think you're on mute, Commissioner.
Yeah, I'm right here, yeah. Aye.
Commissioner Ortiz?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Chair Silver?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. You know what? I think, I forgot to call for public comment on that item. That's my mistake. Let's go back and ask for public comment on the commission meeting minutes. Is there any in the room online? No? Hearing and seeing none. I'll make another motion. Motion to approve the March 2025 meeting minutes.
Second.
Excellent. Ms. Vo?
Commissioner Brandt?
Aye.
Commissioner Ortiz?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Chair Silver?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. Moving on to our consent calendar. So we have 2 items on our consent calendar, items 3 and 4. I'm going to pull item number 4. That's just going to leave item number 3 on the consent calendar. So I propose we just take up the consent calendar itself first, and then we'll move on to item number 4.
Okay.
So I'm going to invite our enforcement team up here to answer any questions that we may have on the consent calendar. And we have Assistant Enforcement Chiefs Angela Brereton and Christopher Burton. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners.
Good morning.
Any information you'd like to highlight or share before we open it up to questions on just the consent calendar? So item number 3.
The only thing I'd like to point out is that we had an unusual situation here. We had 3 investigators working on this case at one point, and they did an excellent job. They really worked hard to get all of the information that we could gather to bring this settlement to you. So I just want to give kudos to my staff.
Excellent. Hear, hear. Commissioner Wilson?
Yes, Assistant Chief Brereton made an excellent point, and I think it's important to note, somebody might say, well, this was a 2018 case, but the fact that that many members of the Enforcement Division worked on this case indicates that it was one that was serious, it was given high priority, and the timeline does not necessarily reflect what might have occurred in terms of this case taking as long as it did, because the staff did an excellent work in expediting the case as quickly as it could. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from commissioners?
No.
Okay. Do we have any public comment? Okay, then I am going to go ahead and move to approve the consent calendar. Do I have a second?
Second.
Excellent. Ms. Vo?
Commissioner Brandt,
Aye.
Commissioner Ortiz,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Chair Silver,
Aye.
motion passes.
Okay, let's move on to item number 4. So I'm going to go ahead and recuse myself from this item. I don't have a legal conflict, but pursuant to the recusal standard that I laid out at my first meeting as chair back in April 2024, that would be appropriate here. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the room and leave the commission in the very capable, likely more capable hands of Vice Chair Wilson here.
All right, thank you, Chair. We'll wait till you leave the room, and then we'll get started. Okay, proceeding on item number 4, I'm Dotson Wilson, and this item will be taken up. We'll open up item number 4 for discussion. Would you like to make any comments on item number 4?
Yes, again, I would like to recognize the terrific efforts of the enforcement staff on this case to bring this information to light and to be able to bring this stipulation to you today for approval.
Okay. I'd like to open the floor for any discussion. Any of the commissioners like to comment on this item?
He has. Brand.
Commissioner Brandt.
Thank you. Can you, so I'm new to the commission and I'm trying to understand the context. This seems like a large number of things, adds up to a large number. Is this typical that we have this number of violations in a stipulation?
It is not unheard of, but it is not the normal pattern. This particular matter, this conduct was egregious. It was there was purposeful action taken to conceal this activity, and it wasn't reported for 5 years. It took the efforts of our investigative team to bring this information to light. So under those circumstances, we are bringing all possible violations that that were committed during this conduct to the attention of the commission. We don't typically charge every single violation. Often we will combine counts, or we will use certain violations that might qualify under the streamline program as aggravation only and not charge separate penalties in a mainline stipulation. We did not do that here.
And did the investigation reveal that was there a system? I mean, did somebody say should we raise the question or something to to their counsel, or, should we be reporting these? That kind of thing.
I can speak to what's in our stipulation, and in our stipulation, we don't have evidence of that. But we do have information in our stipulation that there were attorneys involved, there were people who were giving guidance, and then this is the activity that we've presented. I don't have other information specifically about your question otherwise.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Brandt. Any other comments from commissioners on this item? Okay, before we entertain a motion on this item, open the discussion for any public comment. Okay, hearing no public comment on this item. Item number 4, is there a motion?
Motion to accept this settlement.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Ortiz to accept this settlement. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Brandt. Ms. Vogt, can you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Brandt?
Aye.
Commissioner Ortiz?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excellent presentation. Thank you. We'll briefly wait for the chair to return.
Okay, we're going to move on to item number 5, and Commissioner Brandt will be leaving us.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Commissioner Brandt.
Bye.
And item number 5 is Cal Access Replacement System, CARS. And we're joined today by several folks from the California Secretary of State's office. So Denise Tower, there's CGI Project Manager, John Hyland, SOS Assistant Project Director, and Kiera Rasmussen, SOS Assistant Division Chief from the Political Reform Division. Good morning, and thank you for being here today.
Yep. Yeah, good morning. Good morning, Chair Silver and commissioners. Thank you for letting us join your meeting again today. As you said, I'm Kiera Rasmussen, the Political Reform Division Assistant Chief, and I and members of the project team are here to provide the commissioners with an overview and update of the Cal Access Replacement System, or CARS, as planned by our prime vendor. This project has been in the works for quite a long time, and so we appreciate this opportunity to share with you the progress we're making and our plans to move forward. Our goal in meeting with you today is to give you the information you need to feel continuously comfortable with the approach that we're taking with the CARS project. Some of our presentation today will have some of the same information that we presented in September of 2024, but of course a lot of progress has been made and we're excited to share those updates with you. I'll also be giving a little bit of background information just to get everybody on the same page and hopefully have a good understanding of the project when we give you the updates. Because the FPPC and staff are current users of CalAccess and will continue to be users of the new solution, we want to make sure you hear the most recent project updates from us. I'd like to start by sharing with you some of the actions we've taken that have gotten us to this point. At the start, we partnered with the California Department of Technology, or CDT. This partnership was invaluable as we progressed through the project approval lifecycle and the successful procurement of a highly qualified vendor for the project. The Department of Technology is still with us on the project. They're currently serving in a project oversight role. And we also have independent verification and validation, or IV&V, consultants on our team whose main role is to identify potential project risks before they happen. We've also formed a really strong and cohesive leadership team, and you'll hear more about that in just a few minutes. Go to the next slide. Was it on? Sorry, I assumed it was on. Okay, so here's a look at our agenda. After I give a little more background information, I'll also do some introductions and highlight for you some of the key opportunities we have for this project. You'll hear from John and Denise as well regarding the project approach and the current project status, and then we'll open ourselves up for questions and answers. All right, so to give a little more background, the Political Reform Division within the California Secretary of State's office is the filing officer for all state-level campaign and lobbying reporting. Our work is prescribed by the Political Reform Act of 1974 and all of the amendments made to it since then, which means that our two agencies' work is very closely related. We take pride in our role in upholding the transparency in California's political processes. CalAccess is the public's window into the filings that are received by the Secretary of State, and it's available on our website. Our current system was developed in response to the Online Disclosure Act of 1997. It resulted in a hybrid filing system in which some filings are made online and are available to view online, while others are still made by paper or by email. This is our legacy system that we're replacing and the reason that we're here today. So we're replacing the legacy system with a more user-friendly, data-driven one that will transition all filings to be online and easily accessible. As you can see, our daily work now is very closely intertwined with the FPPC and your staff. So this project, although it is the Secretary of State's responsibility, must be too. And it is. Regarding the CARS project, we have reoccurring bi-weekly project status meetings that your staff attends. We also have a standing bi-weekly meeting with your executive director, manager of education and external affairs, and others join that meeting as required. Where we connect about business operations that might impact one another. That's what we're discussing in those meetings. The reason I'm sharing this information with you today is to let you know that our presentation is not the only communication we intend to have with you about the CARS project. It is just one of several, some of which are already ongoing. And mainly, I'd like you to know that the lines of communication between SOS and the FPPC exist, and we encourage you to ask CARS-related questions anytime you have them, not just today. All right, so I'll start now to describe the executive and project leadership team. At the very top is the California Secretary of State, Dr. Shirley Weber, who identifies this project as the most significant project within the agency at this time. She stays informed on the project's progress and receives regular project updates from our team. The executive sponsors are Lisa Martin and Reggie Fair. Lisa is the Chief Deputy Secretary of State, and Reggie is the Deputy of Operations. Lisa and Reggie stay informed of project activities and receive weekly updates from our division chief and from the project director and assistant director next to me. Regarding the project leadership team, it consists of Margie Hyder, the Political Reform Division chief and the project sponsor, Tristan Cormier, our CIO, Harjeet Bossi, the SOS project director and director of our project management office, Denise Tower, our Prime Vendors Project Director, and John Heinlein, the SOS Assistant Project Director. The group meets weekly and, of course, touches base daily at this point when needed to stay informed on our project activities. All right, I want to walk you through some of the key objectives of the project. Oh, sorry, it was there. Okay, so first, to automate the processes. Our current workflows involve a lot of manual steps that are time-consuming and susceptible to error. By automating these processes, we'll streamline operations and be able to focus on higher-value tasks. Next, to enhance the data quality and validation, we're building in strong data checks and validation rules to ensure that information is accurate and reliable from the moment that it's entered by the filer. This will minimize corrections and inconsistencies. This project is our opportunity to replace outdated technology with a system that is not only current, but also leverages data insights and adheres to high security standards. The system is being designed with multiple end users in mind. By making the system more intuitive and responsive, users of the system will be able to complete tasks faster with fewer errors and greater confidence. And finally, this is an opportunity to improve public information access. Transparency is key. And we're ensuring that the public can access relevant financial data easily, quickly, and in a format that makes sense, supporting trust and accountability. So together, these objectives for the project shape a future-ready system that benefits both internal teams and external stakeholders. So now I'm going to turn the mic over to John Heinlein. There you go. To share more information about the project's organization.
Okay, thank you. Oh, go ahead, just go to the next slide. Oh.
The other way. There you go.
Oh, oops. There we go. Hi, my name's John Heinlein, and I'm the Assistant Project Director for CARS. I began my role here shortly in mid-2022, which was when the project started the planning effort. And I just wanted to sort of emphasize something I think would be important to you, or what you would want to know about the project is you wrote your policies for stakeholders, various different stakeholders to benefit from. So one of the sort of guiding objectives that when we started planning this project was stakeholder engagement. And even when we drafted the charter, it had us list out all the stakeholder groups and ensure that that the plan was, once we created a communication and stakeholder management plan, that they were engaged early and often throughout the planning phase and now in the execution phase, which is what's going on now. We are engaging them. They were engaged in the planning phase during or at least the ones that needed to be involved, were reviewing the requirements to making sure that they covered the business areas that they, were concerned with, including especially the third-party stakeholder vendors. And now we're involving them in a lot of design review, giving development system demonstrations, as well as opportunities for user acceptance testing. So I did want to give you that.
Sorry to interrupt you. I thought it'd be helpful for the public to hear who some of these stakeholders are.
Yeah,
I can tell you myself, when I first started as chair, there were a lot of people reaching out to me saying, we have these concerns, and then you've just done all hands on deck approach to make sure everybody's involved, at least from my perspective, and that chatter's kind of silenced. So I think that's just an indication of just what an excellent job you're doing, bringing in all those stakeholders. So those include the campaign treasurers?
Yeah, well, and that's actually on the next slide. So I'm going to get to that. So
sorry, I'm just so excited.
I know I probably should have mentioned that sooner. But I did want to set up the idea, like when we were planning this project, that was one of the key. It's a best practice for IT projects. I mean, projects will fail if they don't involve stakeholders early. Sometimes they'll bring them in at the very end. They won't even. These are the users of the system, and they won't involve them in the design. And then they expect the users to buy into the system. It's been a problem. But this project, one of our guiding North Star was to follow project management industry standards and best practices, which this is one of. And I did want to sort of mention something that Kira mentioned was we have a really good leadership team, especially the project sponsor is very engaged. And one of the stakeholder groups is the internal PRD staff who administer the policies from the administrative side. She has ensured that all those folks are engaged in the subject matter expert areas they need to be involved in, and kept the other ones that aren't involved in with the status of the project, so they'll be bought in. So I did want to give Margie a shout out because she is helping with that effort, and it's one of the strong points of the project. Also, I think it's critical to note that Kira mentioned we have executive project sponsors. That too is very helpful, especially when we, the SOS has a lot of divisions. And sometimes there's priorities between divisions. They help sort of smooth those over. If there's efforts to communicate with executives outside of the SOS, they help with that. So we have a very good sort of leadership team and processes in place in that regard. Also, one thing I did want, and Kira mentioned about the CDT helping us, they helped us with the planning. They helped us actually, create the request for proposal document, that we had a very robust solicitation effort to get a prime vendor, which I'm very happy to say CGI won, and they're doing a very good job. And so CDT and the IV&V, we also have third-party view of how it's going. They write reports every month. They also report out at our executive steering committee, both CDT and IV&V. So if you're interested in attending, you can hear their report out to see how the project is going. Also, another thing I wanted to mention, at least regard to this slide, I know it's kind of hard to read, but there's a data governance piece on here. One of the things that the Political Reform Division did during the planning phase was create a robust, formal data governance process to ensure that when the data was, when the data has to move from the legacy to the new system, and there's going to be data discrepancy issues, there's going to be integrity concerns. This is a process to formalize any decision-making and make sure that the data integrity is in place as it moves from the new system, or from the old system to the new system. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and switch to the next slide. So this slide, this is our this is like our stakeholder, engagement sort of wheel of all the different stakeholder groups. And on this one, you see the external partners that we're very, very, we want to engage them, and we have been engaging them. It's our partner agencies, Fair Political Practices Commission, Franchise Tax Board, our electronic data filing vendors, what we call the third-party software vendors like NetFile, there's others. Most of our data comes in that way. It's critical to engage them, and we have been. But the actual people who use CARS to file their campaign and lobbyist data, they're also a distinct user group. And finally, it's all those groups that access our data through the public portal. That's a huge group too, that we're trying to engage, a lot of watchdog groups. So that's another group that we engage and have been engaging. So that's a high priority, as I mentioned. Since the project execution began, we have been having monthly meetings with both the broader external group as well as specific meetings for the third-party software vendors, because those are the ones that really need to understand our interface with that electronic interface and how it's going to work, so that they can prepare and have enough runway to successfully interface with it before it goes live. So I'll just stop there and hand it over to my partner, Denise Tower.
Oh, thanks, John.
You're welcome. And if you have any
So
questions,
quickly,
let me
we
know.
have one question from Commissioner Wilson.
Yes, the slide presentation is very informative, and because we have a hard copy, I could read the other chart despite my eyesight. But I wanted to ask you a quick question, Project Manager Heinlein. Just ballpark, not an exact number. How many when you talk about stakeholders, you went through a list that seems to be very have a very wide scope. Like roughly 50, 100. How many stakeholders would you say generally are involved?
Groups or individuals?
Just either one. I mean.
Oh, well, I think those four groups I mentioned in terms of external, we have the internal PRD administrative team. So that's like a fifth user group. If we're talking about user stakeholders, there's other stakeholders too that we mentioned on here that are part of the project, not necessarily that benefit from your policies.
Yeah.
So I would say that those five, and Kira, feel free to chime in, but those are the big sort of groups that we are trying to engage at this point.
Yeah, just to add, thank you. We've also actively engaged the CPTA, the Professional Treasurers Association, and CPAA, the Attorneys Association. They're members of our external stakeholder updates and a part of that.
Yeah, it seems to be very expansive and a very inclusive group. So no one can say they're not able to participate in the process. So thank
That's
you.
what we're trying to avoid. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think when we have our external stakeholder meetings, it's plus 60 people on the phone regularly. And then when we have our twice a month, we do detailed reviews with the third-party vendors. We're 30 plus, 40 plus people participating. So we are getting a lot of active participation in our meetings.
Thank you.
All right, I'm just going to kind of do a quick overview. I know we talked a little bit about this last time, then I'll kind of give you a quick status of where we are with the project right now. So from an organization perspective, what we discussed last time is CGI is a very integrated team with the SOS and PRD and ITD staff, working with them pretty closely. On the left-hand side, the development, that's the team that's doing all the coding and unit testing with the work. The architecture team is responsible to make sure we're following all the security guidelines, our infrastructure is set up properly. We are in the Microsoft Azure government cloud, so there's a lot of rules and requirements there. So that group does all of that. We have a business team. We have like 4 to 5 business analysts working directly with the PRD staff, understanding all the very complex business rules and processes related to this application. The test lead will be responsible for all testing, participating with system testing, which is integrating all the different pieces together of the application and then working directly with the user acceptance test team that's being put together by the SOS staff. The training team will then be responsible to train all of those external stakeholders we've been talking about, including the PRD staff, and there'll be very unique training for each of the different groups. Then we have our database team and data conversion team responsible for getting all that legacy data from the old system to the new system. We now have over 88 plus tables and 800 plus fields that we have in our database that will continue to grow as we develop the application. So there's a lot of complex things and transformations that need to happen from the old data to the new data. And then I have Deputy PMO who's responsible for all the project support office type activities, integrating with John and his staff on a pretty much daily basis. Okay. Our approach, again, this is an integrated system, as Kira has talked about. We have a team of experts. We have people who are understanding political reform division. We've brought on 4 or 5 different business analysts to work directly with the staff. Margie's been very great about providing her staff access for us. So we have at least 1 to 2 hour meetings every day talking about all the rules and refinements of the sessions, the activities that we need to do, the workflows, to make sure our development team is coding the system properly and meeting the business requirements of the application. So this is a custom solution. California has very unique rules. We have over 2,000 plus requirements we are implementing in the solution. So it's a lot of work, and it must be a joint effort between SOS and CGI to make this successful. Okay. The overview, I talked a little bit about it. It's customized. It has to be flexible. It's in the Microsoft Azure cloud, which is a lot of new technology to allow it to grow forward. If there's peaks and valleys of participation for deadlines of filing, the solution can expand automatically for the servers and the underlying infrastructure in order to meet the demands of the public and to meet the demands of the filers. I mentioned already, it's in the cloud, Microsoft Government Cloud, which provides different levels of security. It's redundant. One region goes down, we immediately can be responding, and the next region pops up without minimal interruption to the customers. Okay, so project schedule. So where are we? So we have 3 phases that we outlined before. We have the kickoff and planning phase. This is now complete. In this phase, that was what we talked about last time we were here. There's 10 different deliverables, which are all the governing documents related to running a project. What's your project management practices? What's your test plan going to look like? What's your security going to look like? The infrastructure, all of those sorts of things. So that phase is now complete. That was done late last year. We are officially in phase 2, which is a lot of activity. I'll talk about development here. And then the final phase is your maintenance and operations phase. The project schedule. So we're in phase 2, as I mentioned. And inside phase 2, we have 4 development increments. The first one is what we're doing right now, and it's focused on filer registration and disclosure. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But then you can see the rest of the increments, which will start here mid-May, system administration and financial transactions, and then the reporting side of it and correspondence, and then the public portal at the end. So this is our schedule. The purple bar indicates those items are done. As I mentioned, the phase 1 is complete. We've got the system technical architecture documents been complete, and that is your infrastructure and how all the different services, the tools you're going to use, the infrastructure in the cloud, what does it all look like? So that's been completed. We do have several environments set up, a development environment already, a testing environment, a user acceptance testing environment to allow the SOS staff to participate and look at the code that we're delivering during the sprints. And we are in program increment 1. You can see there, and I'll talk about that a little bit more, development, and then we are actually converting data as we speak. Okay.
Quick question. Sure. So I'm looking at the timeline. It says go live 11/26. So that's live internally, correct? Or is that going to go live to the public?
Live to the public, everybody.
Okay, so that would be following the 2026 general?
Yes.
Okay. And then I think we'll probably talk about training later on in this presentation, right? So I'll leave those questions till later.
Okay.
Because I imagine there's going to be a lot of training necessary.
Yes, and there's going to be different types of training, in person, webinars, stuff like that. So people self-paced training that they'll be able to do that on their own
Excellent.
time.
Well, I think having that timeline is a great idea. That gives us the most time to train people before we have a primary. Go ahead.
Okay, so this just highlights the number of requirements we have in each of the program increments, and you can see the first one's the biggest. We wanted to get a lot of complex stuff started early. We wanted to work with the third-party software vendors early, and I'll talk about that in a minute here. So we're putting a lot of the core functionality in program increment 1. That gives us a lot of time to work with PRD and evolve the application as we go, and get the hard stuff out of the way, make sure it all works properly, and then continue down the path on financial transactions and then reporting and that sort of stuff next. So here's how we're organizing our work streams. So we have a candidate on the campaign and lobbying side. So we're actually developing the candidate and intention statement. I'll talk about that. I'll just show you a couple little slides there. Slate mailer organization, and then on the lobbying, we're working on the lobbyist and lobbyist employer and working through all their business rules, registrations, and disclosures. So we can see the end-to-end process as we go through. At the bottom there, you'll see we just finished sprint 8 of 40. So we still have a lot to go, but now we're just starting sprint number 9, development activities. Just some sample slides now. These are actually, we've demoed to Lisa and Reggie. We've also demoed yesterday to the external stakeholders, some of the application that we've already developed for the candidate and for the lobbyist. So I'll just flip through these, but these just so that these are actually working. They're integrating with a lot of tools for address validation, databases, all that sort of stuff. So this is great for us. This is sprint 8. We're starting to actually get the system out for people to get their hands on it and kind of give us some really good feedback from external stakeholders and internally with the PRD staff. Okay, this is just the candidate intention statement, and this isn't the final look of it. We're going to continue to evolve that, working with PRD as we go forward to make sure it's the right look and feel as we finish it up in November 2026. Okay, let's skip through those. So data conversion, we talked a little bit about that. It's important to get all that data across, so data quality is important. Also, if the data doesn't meet the quality standards, we are still going to convert that in text form, and we'll work with the filers or whoever that needs to, they're allowed to correct that going forward. But we are collecting both data. Everything needs to come and be somewhere in the legacy system. Okay. All right. Interfaces, again, we've talked a lot about this already. We have once monthly meetings with the external stakeholders. We meet twice a month with third-party software vendors to work on designs of their APIs. They're providing a lot of great questions and feedback early to us to make sure we're getting it right. They have really crazy scenarios sometimes that we have to think about, but it's been great participating with them. And we're going to start a POC with them in sprint 11, which is about May 16th. So we'll be able to, they'll be able to send us a file, we'll be able to receive it, validate all the business rules, and send them a response back. And we've had 3 of the external vendors respond and want to participate with in the POC with us. So we'll get really good feedback early on from them on how we're doing with the application, and show that they can send and we can receive, and we can get them information back. Okay. Testing, the important thing there on this slide, I won't go through everything, is user acceptance testing. That's where a lot of people will participate, including FPPC in the user acceptance testing of the application. That will go on for a long time. It's not just going to be one big thing at the end. We'll do it in multiple steps as we go through it, but that will be an important participation point. Training, a little bit about training. We are following an industry standard where we're analyzing the needs, then we're designing the training material based on the application. We'll implement it and actually teach people, and then we'll evaluate and get some feedback and make some improvements going forward. So do you have a question on training?
No, I think that's great, and I feel like if I ask too many questions, we're probably getting ahead of it. And I'm glad your focus right now is, on UI and hitting that November 2026 a target date. And just to circle back on some of the wireframes you put together, this looks excellent. I
Great.
feel like compared to what we have right now, this is gonna be very easy for users to navigate. So hopefully there won't be, as much training necessary as I previously thought, because it's so intuitive.
Yeah, and I did want to say,
Commissioner Wilson? Oh, no, sorry to interrupt.
well, yeah, I just wanted to just mention along the train line, the system is like a wizard driven, where it asks questions and you answer, and as you answer, the screens contextually change. So it's not like there's a lot of training to tell people how to fill it out. So it is, I mean, just to sort of answer your question about training, we're designing it to be intuitive. So thank you.
Commissioner Wilson?
Yes. Project Manager Tower, thank you for the excellent, presentation. All three of you are very informative. And this is for my own curiosity. We're moving from the legacy system to this new system. Just generally speaking, when was the legacy system initially developed?
Goodness, I don't know that answer. Do you?
Well, I know it was developed in the 90s. So, yeah, it was developed in the 90s, so I know it rolled out at either late 90s or early 2000s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's very helpful. I was just curious. Thank you.
It's 20 to 30 plus years of data that needs to be moved. Very challenging.
Yep.
Commissioner Ortiz?
Not a question, but a comment to commend the Secretary of State for doing this, moving forward to modern times instead of just like Commissioner Wilson saying the legacy in the 90s. I mean, so this is very good. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, as I mentioned, it was in response to the Online Disclosure Act of 1997, and it was between 1999 and 2001 when it was built.
It survived Y2K. That's
Has
impressive.
survived.
Yeah, I have a question in terms of integrating AI into it. I don't know if that's something you've all considered, you've had questions on. I just feel like this would be a perfect project to integrate some sort of agentic AI that could help new users navigate the system. So I know this is a project that was started well before
Yes.
the new advances in artificial intelligence, but just a general comment.
That's a great thought. We'll take that as a note. But yes, we've had internal conversations about AI and how we could help the Secretary of State going forward and that sort of thing, but nothing official yet, but definitely on everybody's minds. And back to your comment, yes, the Secretary of State's team has been very good. We have access to them as much as we need to. And we have formal meetings, 1 to 2 hours a day, like I said earlier, going through the detailed requirements and helping us understand what they mean and all the business rules around those things. So it's been great to have that kind of access in order to develop this application. Hopefully it will be something that they'll be able to use and help. They feel pride in the development of it because they're participating at a very low level with us every day. Okay, just a couple quick other things here. This is, I mentioned we've completed phase 1 of the project. We're in the design phase. I talked about these deliverables earlier. The big thing in there is the detailed system design. That's a joint effort. And again, we're still just only 8 of 40 sprints done going forward. So we still have a lot of work to do. Okay, I'll hand it back over to Kira. If there's no other questions for me.
No. Well, you may or may not be wondering, what do we need from you? And so I'd like to wrap us up here. First, I do want to take this opportunity to genuinely thank the FPPC staff who have been very actively engaged on this project with us, specifically Executive Director West and Dave Bainbridge, Chloe Hackert, and Lindsay Nakano. They are very involved with us. And of course, the other staff who are attending meetings as well for information. And we're really looking forward to building on the momentum that we've created together. And second, open and timely communication remains key to the CARS project. As we encounter decision points or we need specific input, your prompt feedback will help keep the project on track and avoid any delays. So I know we were asking questions as we were going, and so you may or may not have any questions for us at the end, but we'd just like to open it up.
Excellent. Well, we're happy to help in any way that we can, and I just want to echo your sentiment. I'd like to thank the FPPC staff, especially Executive Director West, General Counsel Bainbridge, Ms. Haggard and Ms. Nakano. They've done an excellent job staying on top of this. Like you mentioned, you're doing, I think, bi-monthly meetings on this topic,
Yeah.
bi-weekly meetings.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Which is excellent. You know, this is a project that's taken a long time. It's an important project, and what's one of the reasons that it has been lengthy. But I'm very excited that it seems like we're very close to the finish line. I think, you know, so much of that has to do with the approach that you all are taking, and it also has to do with the excellent engagement that staff has on this project and stakeholders as well. Go ahead, Commissioner Wilson.
Yeah, the chair couldn't have said it any better, but I kind of have a general question. You may or may not know the answer, and you know, California leads the way when it comes to innovative ideas, and I'm making that assumption as it relates to this project. But are there any other states that are implementing similar kinds of technology in the through their Secretary of States or other you know, comparable agencies?
Yeah, there are. I know New York City had recently a request for proposal out and there's others, but I think California is the most robust in terms of policy. So we did one, as part of our solicitation and sort of outreach and research, we talked to other states about their systems that they have, and we got their solicitation documents if we could, so we could look and see how they developed it. So there are other states that have solutions, but I think California is probably the most complex one.
Yeah, right. I came to that conclusion before I asked the question, but thank you again for your hard work, all three of you.
We did speak with several other states and, you know, research to determine the approach to take for the project. One that comes to mind is Washington. I remember that they built their own system internally, and they shared their challenges and success that came along with that. One of the things we see is, or that I remember seeing, is that most states had separate campaign and lobbying filing officers. You know, it varies by state, the requirements, where they file, what they file. And so our system is unique in that it's both in one place. And so, yeah, we do plan to have the best.
Well, thank you. I'm sure California will be a model for other states after this is rolled out in 2026. So thank you.
And I think that's an advantage for transparency, really, because then the public knows where to go if they want to see, you know, candidate committees, ballot measure committees, and then see the lobbying information related to individuals and entities who are attempting to, you know, lobby those public officials, those candidates. So I think that's an excellent approach. Yeah, definitely. Do we have any public comment on this item? No? Do we have any other comments from commissioners? Okay, great. Then I'm going to thank you again so much for coming today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, well, why don't we move on to item number 6, and that is going to be adoption of proposed amendments to regulations concerning electronic filing of statements of economic interest, Form 700s, with the FPPC. At the table with us is going to be Brian Lau, our Assistant General Counsel. Good morning, Mr. Lau. Sure, we can go ahead and do that, Mr. Lau. You want to just stay at the table, and Ms. Hacker will present the proposed forms, and then we'll move on to item number 6. We don't have to have you moving all around the place.
You get a bonus presenter on this item. Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Chloe Hackert. I am the Education and External Affairs Unit Manager in the Legal Division. And today, kind of going off of Secretary of State's presentation, I have for you a sample data output. And so with that, today I'm here to present a sample report for visualizing data outputs from campaign submissions via the new Cal Access Replacement CARS system. I would like to give a shout out to our desktop publisher, Mason Lord, in the Legal Division, who created this mock-up for your viewing. In the current Cal Access online filing system that we know has been around since early 2000s, once the data is submitted, it is inputted onto a FPPC Form 460. It is a long-form recipient campaign statement that includes multiple schedules like an old tax form. The new CARS system will be data-driven. The sample report mockup that you see here provides an example for visualizing data outputs from the CARS system. This output would change based on what fields are filled in, and so that blank fields, extraneous schedules would not be included, helping the reader understand the information that's presented. We are excited by this development and for the modernization of systems and campaign reporting. So we're just here to show that today as an example sample of what maybe could be exported out of the system for the new car system. And so please let me know if you have any questions, but we just wanted to provide this to you guys as a visualizing sample overview of data reports that can be outputted through cars.
Sure. This looks excellent. I think it's a great visualization of where we're headed, where SOS is headed, where just in general campaign finance and lobbying reporting is headed, right? We're focused on a data-driven approach rather than taking data from forms, right? We're going to just focus on the data and then create forms based on that data, which is a much more efficient way to approach campaign reporting. So thank you for doing that. This is beautiful.
wanna
And
ask
Commissioner Ortiz?
Yeah, thank you. So that I understand what's going to happen on November 26th, I guess. Is this what an elected official has to file with the Secretary of State? Or are the old forms going to be gone, Schedule A, Schedule B, Schedule C?
I believe the 460 will probably still stand because there's going to be local systems that people are still filing on paper. But when you're filing with Secretary of State, if you're a state official, you'll be filing online. So it's kind of be like TurboTax where you're like entering your information into fields online. And this is kind of an example of what could be put out of the system. So when you go to download what you've inputted as the data, it will provide for you this output that's a data-driven output. That's kind of more like a bank statement
Okay.
of all your
So
activities.
this is the information that will go out. As a candidate, you still be using those old forms?
If your Secretary of State filer, if you're a state filer
Yeah.
using CARS system, it's going to be data inputting. And so this is an example of what the data output of what you've keyed
Yeah.
into the system will come into. They're still working on it. This isn't going to be exactly what you'll see in November 2026. This is a mock-up to show you what could
Yeah.
be. But yes, they will see that coming out of the system of what they've inputted, and it likely won't be on a 460 schedule by schedule. It'll be contributions in, expenditures out, kind of relaying what data is in.
So you're going to be doing a lot of education time.
We
Yeah.
will be doing a lot of education, and we'll be partnering a lot with the Secretary of State and external stakeholders and getting input as these are being developed. But as we're beginning to build the system, we're thinking of how we want it to be put out of the system as well.
Okay, thank you.
One quick question, which was prompted by Commissioner Ortiz's question. In terms of local elected officials or local, let's say cities and counties, how have they responded to this upcoming change?
I think they're beginning to get more feedback on that. I know that a lot of them are really excited for CARS. I think it will help make things clearer on who files where and with what, and for it to be an updated, modern system that they can easily pull those reports or see the statements and see everything. I think they're very excited by that. Because for now, for instance, if 410 is filed, it won't be, that's a statement of organization. It will only be, once it's approved and processed, it will show up in the system, but it'll be real-time submissions that they'll easily be able to get.
Okay, that's very informative. Thank you.
Yeah, Ms. Vogt, are we able to pull up the SOS's presentation? Just I thought it'd be helpful to take a look at what the user experience would potentially look like in a data-driven approach versus the Form 460s that are filed right now. So I can give you the specific page or slide. Let's see. You know, it doesn't look like there's slide numbers on here. So if you could just, yeah, it was towards the end. There we go. Is that lobbying? Why don't you scroll a couple up to campaign? Perfect. Okay. I also have horrible eyes, so I hope I'm looking at the. Okay, perfect. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So here versus filling out a typical statement of organization. I believe it's a Form 410. I haven't filled one out in a really long time. Is that right? 501. Okay. So instead of doing your typical 501, you're going to have a process that you're more familiar with today when you're signing up for an email or signing up for a new product or something, right? It's very customer, consumer focused. You log in, it asks you who you are registering for, right? Are you registering for yourself, someone else? continue ask you other relevant questions that are necessary to get the information that would otherwise be provided on a 501. So that's the approach that we're taking, rather than having people fill out the forms and then pull the data from those forms. I hope I didn't mess that up too much. Okay, excellent. Okay, any other questions from commissioners? Okay, any public comment on those forms? Okay, hearing and seeing none. Without further ado, Mr. Lau, and of course, thank you, Ms. Hacker, for throwing all this together and for that excellent presentation.
Chair Silver and Commissioners, Brian Lau, Assistant General Counsel, and I am here to present a proposed regulatory package necessitated by Assembly Bill 1170, which took effect January 1st and requires all statements of economic interest filed with the Commission to be filed using the Commission's electronic filing system. As you may recall, the proposal was brought to you before the Commission in February for a pre-notice discussion. As background information, statements of economic interest, also referred to as Form 700s or SEIs, must be filed by all public officials who make or participate in making governmental decisions that may affect financial interest. These statements are public documents that help inform the public of potential conflicts and serve to remind officials of their interests by requiring regular review. There are two distinct schemes for determining which officials must file SEIs. First, Section 87200 designates the highest level positions who must report all financial interest and have the broadest disclosure requirements. These officials are commonly known as 87200 filers. They include things like elected officials, city council members, the commission itself, the highest of officials. Second, under 87300, other SEI filers are determined by their respective agencies. These filers are commonly referred to as code filers, as they are required to file SEIs as determined by the agencies in their conflict of interest code. These codes designate which positions must file and what level of information each official must provide based on their job duties. The Commission began accepting electronic filings about 10 years ago. However, until the passage of AB 1170, these electronic filings were optional. Over 25,000 statements were filed with the Commission last year. Approximately 20,000 were done electronically. Notably, because of the now superseded requirement to file some SEIs with your agency, who were then required to forward them to the Commission, Commission staff spent hundreds of hours annually reviewing and correcting thousands of SEIs that were forwarded in order to enter them into the Commission's electronic filing system. To eliminate the burden of reviewing the forwarded statements and increase public transparency, the Commission sponsored AB 1170 to require all SEIs filed with the Commission to be filed through the Commission's electronic filing systems directly. Proposed revisions included in this regulation packet that are necessary to implement the new statutory provisions include Regulation 18115.2, which removes superseded language requiring some officials to forward statements to the Commission, as these statements are now directly filed. 18313.6 removes redundant redaction requirements that were incorporated into the statute. Regulation 18724 clarifies that pro tem and retired judges who currently file with the Commission now has to do so using the electronic filing system. Regulation 18730 clarifies a requirement that code reviewing bodies must provide instructions to those officials if the official must file through the Commission's Commission's electronic filing system. 18753 repeals previous rules specifying where to file SEIs because Section 87500 now clearly states when the Commission is the filing officer and where to file statements if the Commission is not the filing officer. Regulation 18754 removes superseded language requiring newly created boards and commissions to forward the SEIs to the Commission, as these statements are now filed directly in the electronic system. Regulation 18756 removes the requirement that electronic filing systems must be able to exchange information with the Commission's electronic filing system. This requirement is no longer necessary because the statements are now filed directly with us. In addition to these amendments that are necessitated by the statutory changes, there is one proposed regulation that I'll address in a little more detail. As proposed, Regulation 18313.5 adds a new statutory requirement to redact email addresses. This is straightforward and similar to the conforming amendments we already discussed. However, the proposed regulation also contains a more substantive amendment that warrants the commission's specific consideration. Under the current regulation, it is the commission's practice to post SEIs online from all elected officials. However, during interested persons meeting, numerous local filing officers expressed interest in extending online posting for other officials now that all SEIs filed with the commission must be submitted electronically. As you may recall, 3 options were presented for pre-notice discussion. Leave the regulation as is, requiring online posting only for elected officials, make all SEIs filed with the FPC available online, or make SEIs for all Section 87200 filers available online. In response to the Commission's concerns about balancing the importance of disclosure with the intrusion of officials' privacy, staff is recommending option 3, amending the regulation to require the FPC to post SEIs online only for the 87500 filers that file with the Commission. This recommendation recognizes the Commission's interest in extending online postings beyond elected officials, while excluding those officials not in one of those high-level positions enumerated in Section 87200. As an additional note, the new requirement will extend to all filings on or after January 1st, 2025, the effective date of the statutory changes. This change begs the question of whether the amendment allows staff to delete online postings dating back to 2010 under the current regulation. Just to ensure the regulatory record is clear, staff wants to state for the record that it is our interpretation that subdivision C requiring the Commission's approval to delete the online postings still stands, and that the approval of this regulatory package does not in itself grant staff the permission to remove those postings. With that, we propose the adoption of the regulatory package, and I can answer any questions you may have.
Commissioner Ortiz?
Thank you. Regulation 18730, page 5, I think it was. Just a question, I'm not,
Okay.
According to this, a person that is in an agency, whether it's a code reviewing body, let's say I'm, one of those people, I have then the choice, 3 choices where I file the FCI, because it says, shall instruct all designated employees with this code, with the agency, or with the code, or with the FPPC, if you read 18730.
Well, there are specific rules in 87500 that is going to designate those officials that have to file with us. Now, on top of that, if you're a designated employee of one of these agencies, then the agency itself determines where you're going to file.
So the agency determines that?
Well, ultimately, they determine it in conjunction with the code reviewing body. It's part of the code reviewing process to determine who's filing and where they will be filing at. So yes, the agency and the code reviewing body have some say in where they're going to file and whether or not they file with the agency, or whether or not they then have to forward it on to another code reviewing body as the final collecting spot.
Okay, yeah, because I was wondering, otherwise it would be very messy if, designated employee A files with this or that or that. Then that agency, that code thing, then forwards all those to the FPPC.
Right, if that's required. If the code specifies that this must be forwarded onto a code reviewing body or the FPPC, then the employee has to follow what the code says.
So it's the agency who determines that,
And thanks for laying that out, Mr. Lau. And that really highlights just, how productive AB 1170 has been, because in many cases, it's going to take that middleman out of the process and send those forms straight to us so the public can review the Form 700s as soon as possible. Commissioner Wilson, do you have a comment?
At a later time.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Lau.
I have.
Excellent. I feel like we discussed this at length at pre-notice, so I don't want the public to have to listen to all my comments at least over again. So perhaps open it up, Commissioner Wilson.
Yeah, I do have a question. Okay. The material that's provided and posted online is very informative, and you answered all of my questions in your presentation, so thank you, Mr. Lau. But I have just a technical kind of question. Let's say you have a situation where you have a senior or somebody with a person with disabilities, and they're just, not going to, they don't understand how to use a computer, they're challenged by the computer. Is there any exception, not a wide one, if somebody says, look, I just have to, I've always done this by filling it out, and I've never filled it out on my computer. Is there any way that I can have an exception to this requirement? And I don't feel strongly about it. It's just more of a general question.
You know, I've seen this come up over the years in the sense of people that maybe don't speak English asking, how should I do this if these documents aren't available online in English? And what we generally see, I mean, most of these are public officials that are working with their agency. So when they contact us, we generally just refer them back to their, like, see if you can find help within your agency and have somebody help you, assist you in finishing the form is how we normally handle it when those questions come in over the phone.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I can do mine online, or I might have to come to you to find out how to fill out my form out. Thank you. That makes sense, though. Thank you.
And I think it's worth noting that our SEI unit, provides that sort of assistance as well. Our Statement of Economic Interest Form 700 unit does that. In fact, they did it quite a few times during the past month, and we're going to go ahead and highlight that in the executive staff reports. And they do an excellent job if someone needs very basic assistance, resetting their password. They'd be happy to help with that as well as more, substantive issues. So, public comment. Do we have any public comment on this item? Okay. So we'll give them a moment. Do we have any public comment in the room? No? General Counsel Bainbridge, what do you suggest in this circumstance?
We shouldn't vote before we get the public comment, so if you want to hold off on a vote, you can, or we can take a bathroom break maybe, and that will.
So should I make?
Why don't we take a 2-minute break?
Okay.
5-minute break? Okay, so we're gonna take a 5-minute break. It is 11:12, so we'll be back at 11:17. If anybody needs to present public comment, you should be back here prepared at 11:17.
So 5 minutes, is that what you said?
Mhm. Okay, we're gonna come back into session at 11:20 a.m. We are on item number 6. Do we have any public comment on item number 6? Okay, good morning, go ahead.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. David Carnahan, the Sunnyvale City Clerk. My apologies for hopping on the phone a little late to slow down your meeting, but I just wanted to share my appreciation for the Commission and your staff for the amendments to 18313.5, requiring now that all 87200 filings will be posted online. I think this is a kind of a piece that was missed in the initial plan for implementing AB 1170, and I think this really helps with public transparency. We all called in to complain about this, so I just wanted to call in and tell you we appreciate you, the Commission and staff, listening and making this. Thank you very much.
Well, we really appreciate that, and thanks for following up on that. And from our perspective, thank you so much for providing us with that feedback. You know, the transition that resulted from AB 1170 was a significant one. So we really appreciate that local jurisdictions were willing to engage on this and make it a smooth process. Any other comments from commissioners? Okay.
I'll make a motion.
Go ahead.
Okay, I make the motion to adopt the proposed amendments to regulations concerning electronic filings of SEIs with the FPPC.
Second?
Okay, Ms. Bowe?
Commissioner Ortiz?
Yep.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Chair Silver?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Lau. Option number 2. I believe so. And just to clarify, we're going with the recommendation of the legal division, which was to, in addition to posting elected officials, we'll be posting all 87200 filers. Good clarification, Commissioner Wilson. Let's move on to item number 7. That's going to be our legislative update with Senior FPPC Legislative Counsel Lindsay Nakano. Good morning, Ms. Nakano.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Lindsay Nakano, Senior Legislative Counsel with the Commission. There are 22 substantive PRA bills now going through the legislative process. Currently, bills are making their way through the policy committees in their House of Origin and to the appropriations committees. I'll go over updates today, including committee results and recent amendments. Starting with the Commission-initiated bills, AB 359 by Assemblymember Ramos, which extends the Commission's authority to contract with local government agencies, passed in the Assembly Elections Committee unanimously 7-0 on consent. The bill was also heard in the Assembly Appropriations Committee and was placed on the suspense file. AB 775 by Assemblymember Fong relating to behested payment reporting was amended on March 27th. The amendments make clarifying changes. They require that the FPPC's e-filing system for behested payment reports send an automatic confirmation email after the report is submitted. And they require local agencies to post the behested payment reports online within 10 days of receipt. So it's adding that 10-day deadline. That bill passed in the Assembly Elections Committee unanimously also 7-0, and it is currently on suspense in the Assembly Appropriations Committee. AB 808 by Assemblymember Addis makes various conforming and cleanup changes related to the CalAccess replacement system, which we just heard a lot about. That bill passed on consent in the Assembly Elections Committee. AB 953 by Assemblymember Pacheco relating to foreign interference in California elections was amended on March 24th with the substantive language of the bill. As discussed with the Commission previously, the bill adds foreign nationals to the list of who is prohibited from making contributions, expenditures, or independent expenditures in connection with a state or local ballot measure. Foreign national is defined in the bill to mean a person who is not a citizen of the United States and who is not lawfully admitted for permanent residence, consistent with the definition in federal law and the federal prohibition on making contributions or expenditures in connection with the candidate. The bill excludes from the definition of foreign national a person who has been granted deferred action and whose deferred action has not expired under the Federal Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals Program. That bill is set for hearing in the Assembly Elections Committee on April 30th. I'll move on to AB 1029 by Assemblymember Valencia. This bill requires disclosure of interests in cryptocurrency on statements of economic interests, also called Form 700s. The bill was amended on March 20th to make clarifying and conforming changes throughout the PRA, and the bill passed on consent in the Assembly Elections Committee. AB 1286 by Assemblymember Berner regarding disclosure of prospective employment was amended on March 24th with the substantive language of the bill. The bill would generally require Form 700 filers to disclose any arrangement for prospective employment on their Form 700 whenever a public official has accepted an offer of employment. The purpose of the bill is to improve transparency regarding conflicts of interest that involve future employers. The PRA prohibits a public official from making or participating in any government decision that directly relates to a public official's future employer. However, there is currently no disclosure of the date that the public official accepted employment, and this bill would close the gap in that disclosure. The bill passed in the Assembly Elections Committee yesterday unanimously, 7-0. The original bill would have applied to both the higher level officials listed in Section 87-200, as well as filers listed in their agency's Conflict of Interest Code. The author accepted committee amendments yesterday to narrow the bill to only the officials listed in Section 87-200. And those amendments should be reflected shortly in the bill language. SB 280 by Senator Cervantes regarding the prohibition on making contributions in state and local buildings was amended on March 25th to add a definition for state or local office buildings. And that bill passed in the Senate Elections Committee unanimously 5-0 on April 1st. The last commission initiated and sponsored bill before we get on to other commission related bills is SB 852 by the Senate Elections Committee. That bill is set for hearing in the Senate Elections Committee on April 29th. And any questions or comments before I move on to other commission related bills?
Commissioner Ortiz?
Yeah, thank you. AB 280. Now it says build state-owned or local government-owned building. So if a legislator has his district office in a private building, does this apply to?
Yes, it would apply to any legislative district office.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Yeah, the only comment I had is excellent work, Ms. Nakano. Looks like we've had 5 bills that have been considered in committee. Is that correct, as of now?
I haven't counted, but I think that's right.
Yeah, and all 5 have gone out unanimously. And I think that's a lot of it, if not all of it, is attributed to the excellent work that you and the legal division have done. So great job. Go ahead. Oh, Commissioner Wilson.
I was going to wait until you ended your presentation, but as a follow-up question, on AB 775, behest of payment reporting bill, I quickly looked at it online, and it was authored by, obviously, by Assemblymember Fong. It seems to have bipartisan support because it came out of committee unanimously. But what was your take on the support for that bill, which is now in the suspense file, as you mentioned, right?
I haven't heard any opposition or concerns from members or other groups at this point. So my impression is that it's been well received.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, I'll move on to other commission-related bills, starting with AB 351 by Assemblymember McKinnon. This bill would increase the contribution limit in Section 84308 for agency officers. That bill was set for hearing in Assembly elections on April 30th. AB 884 was authored by former Assemblymember Assaili. As you may know, that author is no longer with the Assembly. He's now interim U.S. Attorney for the Central District of California, so that bill will no longer be moving forward. AB 950 by Assemblymember Salache relates to campaign advertisement disclaimer requirements for larger printed advertisements. The author's office indicated they're working with the California Clean Money Campaign on amendments to this bill, and it is set for hearing in the Assembly Elections Committee on April 30th. AB 1052 by Assemblymember Valencia. This is a new bill amended into the PRA on March 28th. It relates to digital assets. As it affects the commission, the bill would prohibit a public official from both issuing, sponsoring, or promoting a digital asset, security, or commodity, as well as engaging in any transaction or conduct related to a digital asset that creates a conflict of interest with their public duties. And we're continuing to talk to the author's office about their intention and how this would operate, and maybe providing feedback after further analysis by our staff. AB 1370 by Assemblymember Patterson creates a prohibition on non-disclosure agreements for members of the legislature. That bill passed in the Assembly Elections Committee. The author did accept committee amendments to move the bill out of the Political Reform Act, and the bill should be amended. So moving forward, this bill will likely not appear on any more of my reports. AB 1511 by the Assembly Committee on Elections relating to the transfer of general election campaign funds was set for hearing in the Assembly Elections Committee on April 30th. SB 42 by Senators Umberg and Allen, and I believe Senator Cervantes added on, relates to public campaign financing. That bill passed in the Senate Elections Committee 4-1 with Senator Choi voting no. That bill's headed to the Appropriations Committee next. SB 300 by
Sorry
Senator.
to interrupt you, Ms.
Yes.
Nakano. What were Mr. Choi's concerns about that bill? Did he express any?
I don't recall that he had specific concerns, but I can double check the hearing and get back to you.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay. SB 300 by Senator Padilla relates to, it creates a exception to the conflict of interest prohibition. That bill was amended on April 1st. The amendments strike the prior bill language and instead effectively provide that a tax-exempt 501c5 or 501c6 nonprofit that is a source of income to a public official is not a financial interest for purposes of the conflict of interest prohibition if both the decision solely involves a member or members of the nonprofit organization and not the nonprofit organization itself, and the sole financial effect of the decision is that it may result in an increase or decrease of dues or members of the nonprofit organization. At prior meetings, Chair Silver and former Vice Chair Baker had expressed some concern about this bill, so I'll pause here for any questions or comments.
Sure, I think whenever you're creating a carve-out or an exception to the conflict of interest rules, it merits significant scrutiny. So I think it'd be really helpful to hear from the author's office. I don't know if you've already received this feedback as to how they feel that creating this carve-out for 501c5s, 501c6s would further the purposes of the act and would act in the public interest, right? I'm not aware of those sorts of examples, but before we take any action, if we were to, oppose this bill, for example, I definitely want to hear those types of examples, get that sort of feedback from the author's office. Any other comments from commissioners?
Okay, I will reach out to the author's office with those questions. Okay, moving on, SB 401 by Senator Hurtado. This relates to conflicts of interest. The bill was amended on March 25th to prohibit an employee of a state agency from owning or controlling a financial interest in any business entity that is subject to the regulatory authority of that state agency or does business with the state agency. I was just informed today that the author plans to make this a 2-year bill to enable time and opportunity to refine the bill further. So we will see this likely come back next year in 2026. SB 458 by Senator Nielo passed in the Senate Elections Committee 5-0. It is headed next to the Senate Appropriations Committee. SB 644 by Senator Blakespear is another new bill. It was amended into the PRA on March 25th. Starting January 1st, 2027, the bill would amend the PRA to impose the PRA's contribution limits on candidates for judicial, school district, and community college district offices. The bill would authorize different limits imposed by the city or county itself, or a more restrictive limit set by the Judicial Council, school district, or community college district. This is similar to a 2019 bill, or parallel, AB 571, which established contribution limits on city and county candidates. SB 760 by Senator Allen relates to behested payment reporting and an exception for public appeals. This is another new bill. It was amended on March 24th. Formerly a spot bill, this bill would create an exception to the behested payment reporting requirements, as I said, for public appeals. It would provide that no report is required if the officer, elected officer or PUC member makes a public appeal for payment by television, radio, billboard, a public message on an online platform, a distribution of 200 or more identical pieces of printed material, distribution of a single email to 200 or more recipients, or a speech to a group of 20 or more individuals. The bill provides that that exception does not apply if either it is reasonably foreseeable that the behested payment will have a material financial effect on the officer or their family, or the behesting officer or member is informed that a specific payment was made as a result of that public appeal. SB 827 by Senator Gonzalez is another new bill. It was amended to affect the commission on March 26th. Existing section 53235 in the government code, and this is outside of the Political Reform Act, but it does affect the commission. It requires local agency officials to complete certain ethics training. The section requires the commission, in consultation with the Attorney General's office, to create and maintain an ethics training course that satisfies those requirements. This bill, 827, SB 827, would expand those ethics training requirements to additionally apply to a managerial level employee of a local agency with responsibility over the local agency's finances. The bill would also shorten the time that local agency officials have to complete the training from 1 year from their first day to 6 months from their first day with the local agency. And that concludes my updates, but I'm happy to answer any questions, comments.
Thank you, Ms. Nakano. Do we have any public comment on the legislation we just discussed? I don't see any in the room, none online. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Let's move on to our executive staff reports. Item number 8. So we're going to start with the Enforcement Division's executive staff reports, and we're going to welcome to the table Assistant Enforcement Chiefs Angela Brereton and Christopher Burton.
Hello again. Thank you, Chair Silver. I just wanted to highlight one area of the Enforcement Division report for the Commission today, and that would be Section C, which is our quarterly caseload summary. And this month, I just wanted to note that we have provided an update, which now includes our figures from the March 2025 period, which shows our continued progress in decreasing the number of cases, including the older cases that are still pending with the Commission. So just again, want to thank the hard work of our enforcement staff and continuing to make progress in getting those case numbers down. Other than that, our report is as submitted unless there are any questions from the Commission.
Great. Well, I really appreciate that added level of transparency. The Enforcement Division did an excellent job hitting that directive that we laid out for them, and having this information out for the public to continue watching the excellent progress that you're making, I think is a great thing. So thank you for adding that to the report. Great. Any public comment? No? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to welcome our Chief of Audits and Assistant, Sharada Shah. Good morning, Ms. Shah.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. My report for this month is as submitted, but happy to answer any questions.
Excellent. I don't have any questions. Any public comment? No? Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Commissioner Wilson.
This is more a question out of curiosity.
Yes.
I'm sorry I missed the last draw, but I'm looking forward to viewing the next one. Roughly, when you do the draw, what's the ballpark number of individuals that are in the pool when you do the draw?
It depends on the type of draw
Okay.
that we are doing.
Yeah.
So if you look on our website, we have, right before the draw, we post the handouts, and that has the
okay.
complete population in there. And then after the draw, you can see how many were drawn from
Okay.
that pool.
Has a date for the next draw been set yet?
It has not, but it will be sometime around August, September timeframe.
Okay, I'll wait for that information to come out. Thank you.
Yeah, we will release the date soon.
Yeah, you always do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Now, Legal Division, General Counsel Dave Bainbridge.
Good morning. Just wanted to point out that our recent changes to the Political Reform Act fact sheet is up on the website. So this provides a summary of all the new laws and regulations that went into place starting January 1, 2025. So for people, public that are interested, want to get caught up on what the new laws are, fact sheet is there for you to take a look at, and there's a link on our report here. And I would just also point out, we had discussed quite a bit conflict of interest codes and Form 700s earlier, and on page 11 each month we report all of the different conflict of interest codes that our staff has reviewed in the past month. We're the code reviewing body for lots of different agencies, and every month we review a number of codes to ensure that they're properly requiring officials to disclose and identifying those officials that need to disclose.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Bainbridge. Any questions from commissioners, public comment? Okay. Let's move on to our next report, and that's going to be from our Administrative Division. Chief Administration Wang, good morning.
Good morning, chairs, and good morning, commissioners. So, my report will submit as it is. I just want to point out, as of today, all March 3rd filer has filed their annual through FPPC e-filing system. So we have 100% March 3rd group already filed. So, for the April 1st group, as of today, we have 92% of April 1st group has successfully filed Form 700 through FPPC e-filing system. So at the same time last year, we are about 84%. So this is definitely an improvement.
A significant improvement. And then the March 3rd number, that's
It's 100%.
spectacular. So everybody has filed from March 3rd.
Yes, everybody filed.
Excellent. Well, thank you for you and your work on this and your team's hard work on this. That's really spectacular that we already have everybody from March 3rd in at this point, and that we've improved almost by 10% in terms of timely filing for the 87,300 filers.
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Any other comments? I believe there was a number somewhere in this report, I'm blanking on it now, that laid out how many inquiries, calls, questions that the SEI unit received just last month, and I think it was in the thousands, maybe.
Last month it's 5,582. So yes, so that's not the, I don't know, I'll just say wow.
Yeah, that's quite a workload. So
Yeah, it's
thank
quite
you
a
again
workload.
for all your hard work on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Commissioner Wilson?
This is just kind of a general question that you don't have to get very specific. But what are some of the kind of questions that you receive as it relates to filings?
Because this is the first year for mandatory e-filing, so there's a lot of password questions, and I have to say a lot of people kind of wait to last minute. So we have a lot of people have the login question and how they to do expand statement. So all kind of questions.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. So that so also answer your previous question. So if any filer needs some assistance with e-filing system, so they can reach out to our Form 700 email box. So we're happy to schedule one-on-one meeting with somebody very special. in
Oh,
the system.
that's great. So if somebody wanted to come down and
Yes,
meet
or
face
we
to
can
face, they'd be
do-
able to do that.
Yeah, we can do Zoom, share the screen, just tell them, just do step by step, just help them go through the whole system.
Okay, well, that's a great service, and commend the team for that kind of proactive outreach. So thank you.
Thank you.
And what is that email? Is it form 700 at
Yes.
FPPC?
It's form 700 form 700 at fppc.ca.gov.
Okay, perfect. And then you can, the public can find all that information on our website as well under the form 700 button.
Yeah, that's correct.
Great. Okay, perfect. Any public comment? Okay, looks like we're good. We're going to move on to our last item here. That's our executive director update with Executive Director Galena West.
Hello. So I don't have anything additional to report, but I just did want to thank the SEI unit specifically and Cindy Glazier, their supervisor, on the great work that they did in getting 100% compliance on the March filers. It's very amazing that with all of the workload that they did and the extra overtime that Cindy personally put in to get this done.
Agreed. And I hope you feel better, Ms. West.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
powering through.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Why don't we move on to item number 9, and that's going to be commissioner comments and proposed future agenda items. Do we have any of those from commissioners? No. Okay. I don't either. We have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Commissioner Ortiz?
Yes.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Chair Silver?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank